Good morning, everybody. Let me know if you can't hear me. My name is Vivian Schiffer. I'm the moderator for this morning's panel. I do not have my cheat sheet, so I'm going to let the filmmakers introduce themselves because I know them by first name only. And if you would also tell what your film is in a brief description.
My name is Sarah Terry. The film that we're talking about on the panel today is Fumble Talk, about a grassroots reconciliation program in Sierra Leone. And I'm also incredibly fortunate that the festival is also showing another documentary by me tomorrow called Folk, which follows 3 singer-songwriters through the subculture of American folk music.
Hi, my name is Rob Fruchtman, and my film is Sweet Dreams, about a group of women in Rwanda who formed the first all-women's drumming troupe, the only women's drumming troupe, and then opened the country's first ice cream shop. So it's about ice cream and reconciliation.
Hello, my name is Roland Nashif. I'm a Detroit-based filmmaker, writer, director, and my film is Detroit Unleaded. It's about this young Arab American guy who owns a gas station in Detroit and falls in love with the phone card girl. So it's I call it a slice of life romantic dramedy.
Hello, Jean-Michel Dissart, director of I Learn America, a documentary about 5 new Americans, young immigrants, attending the same school, the International High School at Lafayette in Brooklyn. We spent a year with them, and the film is playing at noon. And thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you all for coming out on a Saturday morning, especially on a pretty morning like this. I'm sure there are a lot of things you could be doing, but I promised you this is the best one. So you made a good choice. This panel is about promoting cultural understanding through film. And as you've heard, 3 of the films are documentaries and 1 is a narrative film. In 2 of the films, Sarah's and Rob's, take us into the ingrained cultures of other nations. They're both about Africa. And the other 2 films are about the integrity of other cultures within the American fabric. So I'd like any or all of you to talk about your own personal take on the difference between those 2.
My sister and I made this film, Sweet Dreams, partly because we both have a deep interest in other cultures, but we were very, very curious about Rwanda 20 years later, or almost 20 years after the genocide. And me personally, because I always felt that the U.S. and the world let Rwanda down, and there was this feeling that we're all interconnected, we're all responsible for each other in this world, and something like this should not have happened, can't happen. We always say it will never happen again. It always happens. So we wanted to take a look and see how a country like Rwanda, that suffered such a terrible, terrible tragedy, could rebuild itself. And it was an exploration not of our culpability, but simply a look at a country that survived something like this and how they survived it through the eyes of a small group of people. And our attempt and our hope was to dig deep into their culture simply by seeing how they were living and what they were doing, and not make any judgments about it, just to see, just to observe and see what it was like. And it was fascinating because every culture has its personality, and it's always interesting to see it emerge. And the more time you spend in a place, the more you see it. You know, and in our case, we filmed off and on for a year and a half. So we got to really get to know this group of people. I can't say we really got to know them deeply, but within a year and a half, certain things emerged beyond the surface. And I think that's very interesting. There are so many similarities that their culture has with ours. There are so many differences that their culture has from ours. And it was very, very interesting to explore both. And that was what was really sort of our abiding interest. If anyone wants to add.
I think the issue of culture and how it's perceived is really important, and I'll be interested to hear what you guys say about culture maintaining its integrity within the American culture. But I come from a documentary photography background, and this film grew out of a project I was doing about forgiveness traditions in post-conflict African countries. And I'm part of a small group of photographers in the documentary world who object to the way that Africa is portrayed in the Western media. If you sort of say Africa, it's like, oh, disease, famine, corruption, poverty, AIDS, conflict. Those are all the images you associate. And I came from an incredible perspective for me of encountering people who were discussing and being willing to forgive things that had happened to them, which I found to be such an infinitely greater wisdom than we have in the West. So my desire in examining culture was not to come, I think the voice of a storyteller is one of the most authoritative things that as the storyteller you own so much about how things are portrayed. I mean, the Western media is one great big voice of storytelling. So there's a very deliberate attempt in the way I told the film for you, as the viewer, to see it through the eyes, by the end of the film, of a Sierra Leonean. So you encounter the culture at the beginning of the film as a shock, as like, what just happened there? And if you see the film, like the opening scenes are a complete shock to a Western mentality. And then I'm taking you by the hand, without telling you that, but I'm giving you the information you need to make you understand it a little bit more as a Westerner. But I'm taking you all the way through it to say, no, you get to see this through the eyes of an African. So it's completely, one of the best compliments I ever got about the film was that my directorial voice was to let them be the voice. So I have very strong opinions about how we portray other cultures. And I'm really curious how you guys think about portraying cultures within a culture.
So for me, as I emigrated to the United States with my family, so I'm very much like Arab American, and I never grew up with any Arab images, like any positive Arab images in the media. And so for me, the inspiration for Detroit Unleaded was I just kept looking around my community and constantly being inspired by these characters that would constantly come in and out of my life, like my friends, my family, and it always seemed so cinematic to me. And so in growing up, I was bombarded with these negative images, but the opposite of that, there was completely, the positive images were totally missing. And then with this recent wave of after 9/11, and then we're constantly bombarded with images of Arabs being portrayed as terrorists, the opposite and reaction to that is, no, actually Arabs are very religious and we're perfect people and we're very pious. I was more interested in everybody else in between. Where are the everyday normal people who go to work, who fall in love? Because for me, that is preserving culture. When my film came out and I presented it to Arab Americans in Detroit, they were, I think, the ones who were most critical and the ones who were sometimes uncomfortable with their image, because it was the first time they're actually seeing themselves mirrored back at them. Like in the film, the girl sneaks out of the house, to go see her boyfriend. And Arab girls were like, why are you portraying us like this? And I'm like, because it's true, because we sneak out of the house. So it was like this sort of notion of, why are you airing our dirty laundry, kind of. But to me, it's an empowering thing. We have to take a step. I always feel like we have to leap over this sort of complex of being seen in front of people, because to me, I think one of the most powerful things I could do is if I can get somebody in the audience to identify with this character on the screen, to laugh with this character, to be entertained by this character, and that person happens to be an Arab American, then that is translating culture, and that is also preserving culture for us as well.
So Island America, yeah.
You're the most mixed up of all of us.
Yeah, I know.
Do you even remember the question at this point?
No, I don't know anymore. What was the question? No. But it's, yeah. I mean, it's following into the footstep of what you were saying. I mean, pretty much, Island America, I mean, the first idea actually of the project was to film in 5 different high schools around the country to see what the experience of coming to America might be, let's say, in Arkansas or Denver or, I don't know, pick it, anywhere. And I live in Brooklyn, and I've been living in Brooklyn for 20 years. I moved to this country also when I was 16. And as I was in Brooklyn doing my research, people say, make your life easy. There is a great school in Brooklyn, an international high school that has made the choice of working with newcomers, with new immigrants. A place that has, made the choice. And so I went to see the place, very safe place. And because the place was safe, I really felt like the kid there that came from everywhere. I mean, you know, you're talking about a diverse place. There was no more diverse school that I've ever seen. But the kids knew who they were. They knew their stories. And that, as a filmmaker, is kind of a great thing to be, where you have teenagers kind of ready to kind of share with you what they felt and what this experience and what their story were. But again, what was interesting at first, the first idea of making that film was a place that had made the choice, a choice of working with a kid, a place that has made the choice of being welcoming, a place that recognized that coming to this country with another language or another culture is not a disadvantage. Quite to the contrary, it's an advantage for the kids coming in, but also an advantage for the place that is receiving them. And in many ways, that's linking back to the question, I think, that school, you know, the culture of that school was what's interested me in filming, and how can a place make that choice of being welcoming and recognizing everyone's differences as an advantage, not as a disadvantage. And from that point on, any choices that we made in the film were in some way mirroring, was a parallel to the choices that the schools and the teacher were doing. And the same way the school put the kid forward with the film, we ended up putting the kid forward and just kind of letting them take over the film and making sure that the film became theirs, you know. But yeah, that's, I don't know if I'm fully answering the questions, but
That's okay. It was
it's okay.
perfect answer.
I just want to say, you just gave me a really great glimpse into American culture when you said, I'm not calling you out, but you said Arkansas. And I was like, oh my gosh, we say Kansas, but now it's Arkansas. Like, what's up with you all that you didn't say
Right.
Arkansas here?
Right.
Like, what's up with that?
And
'Cause
what
nailed
do you
us.
call a person who is from Arkansas? What is like from Texas is a Texan? What would you think a person from Arkansas is called?
Should we take a guess?
You do it first, because you already got the pronunciation.
Arkansan, I don't
Very
know.
close.
Arkansan.
A lot of people think it's Arkansasier, but it's not. It's Arkansan. Arkansan. Right.
Hello, Arkansans.
The state is named after the Arkansas Indians who were from Deshay County, my home county.
Any relation to the Kansas Indian tribe?
I don't think so.
I just wanted to add one thing. You made me think. I mean, one reason I think, are so interested in we've made films about other cultures, is because other cultures are the ultimate, the quintessential American experience. We are all from somewhere else, unless you're a Native American. We are all immigrants, give or take a few generations, and it's in our DNA. So if we don't have an interest in other cultures, we should. And I think that's why we're curious about other cultures, because we are other cultures. It is who we are.